Okay, it is 6 o'clock. I'd like to call this meeting to order. We're going to go to the public comment period. At this time, any member of the public may speak on matters within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board that are not on the agenda. The board will not take action on any item not on the agenda except as provided for by law. Are there any requests to speak? Jack. Go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Jack Ucci-Ferry. I work at a law firm here in town, and primarily focused on hemp and cannabis work. I just wanted to raise to this board that the county licensing process is about to commence to license the one and only cannabis storefront retail for Isla Vista, among other communities throughout the county. I think this is a tremendous opportunity for this body as well as this community to harness a new impulse of economic activity. As I understand it, the county will be announcing a couple public workshops happening probably in March, commencing in March, to understand better what this community would be looking for in a responsible retailer of cannabis. So basically, these will be public workshops. What does Isla Vista want? I think this board has a significant opportunity to articulate what you think the vision for cannabis, legal cannabis in this community might look like. And I encourage you to take a look at that and wrestle with that publicly. Secondly, I also wanted to say that I'm likely going to be affiliated in some way with one of the applicants, so I'm sort of a vested party to some extent, or I might be. So I just kind of wanted to, but basically just put that on your agenda.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jack. And we will publicize those workshops when they become.
Jack, can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
Jack, can you tell us what law firm and also what applicant you're speaking on behalf of?
I'm not speaking on behalf of any applicant.
Okay.
As of this point. I'm talking to several prospective applicants. And the law firm that I'm affiliated with is Brownstein Hyatt Farber Schreck.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jack. George.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other requests to speak during public comment? Okay. With that, then we'll close the public comment period, and we will go into discussion and action items. The first item on our agenda is item 4.1, Resolution 20-3, the Climate Emergency Resolution. We have Mr. Roden, who is here from the Citizens Climate Action Committee. Am I getting that right? I'm mixing up all the different.
Lobby, right?
Citizens Climate Lobby to present to us this resolution today. So I'll really just hand it over to you and let you speak.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Brandt, President Brown, members of the board. Thank you, staff. I requested a meeting with Vice Chancellor Thurlow. We met in early December to talk about carbon pricing as a strategy for dealing with the climate crisis. He introduced me to Jonathan, and I've been talking to him and dialoguing with him. I met Spencer today and talked to him for a few minutes. So I fully support the resolution before you. I was one of those who spoke before the Board of Supervisors to have the board declare climate emergency, so I'm fully supportive. But you know what they say, everything before but is irrelevant, right? But I would like to ask you to consider holding a vote on this resolution. Allow me and others that are involved with Citizens Climate Lobby, that I'll explain in just a second, to hold a workshop for the board and the community at no cost, and to talk about not just climate change as it may affect us at the micro level right here, but in addition at a global level, because I think we can all agree it's a global problem. And I did not have access to this amazing new tool when I met with Vice Chancellor Thurlow back in December, called the En-ROADS simulator. So I just want to make a couple of quick points, and I left some materials on your chair. So the first one illustrates what the Climate Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, HR 763, will do, according to many independent studies, over the period of the next 30 years. So by putting a price on carbon for the first time, forcing the fossil fuel industries to fully lay out all of the hidden costs of fossil fuels, the externalities as the economists call it, will now affect the marketplace and allow a process by which choices are made in the marketplace that reflect the true cost of what fossil fuels are causing to the planet, to our health, and so on and so forth. The plan actually, which I'll explain very briefly, has a carbon dividend which begins at a relatively modest rate and builds up over time. Number two, every dollar collected is returned pro rata to everybody in this country, half share to children, full share to adults, as long as you have a Social Security number or a tax ID number or some other account through the IRS and the Treasury Department. So you're going to have 290 million decision makers every month the checks are distributed. So the fee is collected at the well source, the coal mine, the natural gas extraction location, and nowhere else down line. Then all of those costs that are imposed, what will be billions and billions of dollars, then are redistributed out in equal shares to all of us to spend. And through that, you will see by 2050, without taking any more of your time, there's a projection which was just underscored and validated by Columbia CEPA climate study process, showing about a 90% reduction in greenhouse gases and other CO2, methane and other F gases, which are causing the problems in the atmosphere. So that's one part of this. The other part is, why should we believe it? So that's where MIT Sloan comes in. Those of you who had system dynamics at school or know anything about it, there's a professor there named Sturman, who, along with many, many others at many institutions around the world, developed this simulator where you can actually watch. I showed it to Spencer today in his office, and if we had more time, I could show you here. But that would be the purpose of the workshop. So in real time, you can look at what we know for the first 20 years of this century and what the best modeling and science, data-driven science, will show us for the next 80 years to get us to 2100. And we are currently on a path that will get us to about 4.1 degrees centigrade increase in temperature over pre-industrial temperatures, or something like 7.8 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't think it takes an MIT scientist to understand this would become an unlivable planet, not only in Isla Vista, but all along California for sure, all along the East Coast as well. So we have to do something about it, but how do we go about it? And all of us have our own theories how to do it. What the MIT Sloan simulator allows you to do is say, well, I want to see more renewables, and you can slide, as you see on the second page. We had copied 4 cents to this isn't going to get that much worse within the next month or 6 weeks or however long we can do that. So, but we could absolutely do it.
So you're going to bring us a menu of action items that we should endorse to reduce our carbon footprint here in Isla Vista.
Well, I'm going to work with you through this climate interactive simulator, and in the way in which we interact, you will see where the choices that have to be made at the global level and then how they can be applied at the local level. So not quite an agenda that I have, because I don't, but I know I have a tool which I know you can all use that will get you to where I think we need to be and feel like you're playing a more concentrated role in a much larger, obviously, problem over which we have very little influence these days.
I'll go over to Bob.
So are these 9 boxes at the bottom, is that what
Yeah,
we're going
if you
to explore?
just, after the meeting, just go to Climate Interactive, punch the thing that says simulator. This will pop up, this is what you will see. And then you can actually interact and pull the levers If you look at the end of every lever, for example, look at the one on coal under energy supply, right at the right of that, you see the 3 vertical dots? Just touch that with your clicker, there's a drop-down menu, and now there's a whole explanation available as to the policy choices regarding coal, whether it's blocking new coal plants or closing down the ones we have, how long it takes to close them down, and an infinite variety. There's 9 major models built into this from around the scientific universe, and 16,000 equations that are built into this program. So you get to see in real time, if we were to put a hold on coal new plants, what that would do to the energy supply and what it would do to the temperature at
I
this
guess what I was
time.
after in a simple way.
Yeah,
If we're
sorry.
gonna list some things in our resolution that we want to use to accomplish, with that, is it gonna be these 9 boxes at the bottom
No, no,
or
no.
more? Or is there this infinite amount of stuff we can do?
Yes, an infinite amount of things that can be
So how are
done.
we gonna focus in on what we want to do?
Because I think when we go through this in a workshop setting, you will see that there are lots of things that have to be done to encourage renewables, to encourage, to eliminate deforestation, to focus on eliminating methane gases and all the rest of it. But the single one lever that makes the biggest impact going forward is carbon pricing.
That's this box, yeah, okay.
But you can't see it unless you play with it. And I urge you to go home and play with it. It is absolutely amazing in terms of challenging your own ideas about, okay, if we go to complete renewable, just do this for the first one. It starts out at 4.1 centigrade. Take the renewable lever, push it all the way to the right, and you'll see that the temperature drops exactly 0.2% between now and 2100. So it's part of a solution, but it doesn't get us anywhere near 1.5 degrees centigrade. And you can't really get that in your gut unless you actually play with the levers and see how it works. And it takes a little bit of workshop time to learn the levers, basically, learn the program.
Okay, I'm gonna go over to Jake.
Sorry.
I would like to thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. This is something that I actually felt somewhat embarrassed that I had not known about until I saw it come before our agenda 2 weeks ago. In an interest of attempting to figure out, I dug into the premise of it, the math of it, and trying to get an understanding. And my first reaction, which was my first naive reaction, as it were, was some confusion in some sense that people are going to be spending money on a tax that then they're going to get the money back. And I started to try to understand how the incentive structures would actually end up working for that. I started thinking then through the dynamics of how if you personally are lowering your carbon usage, your carbon footprint, then you can actually essentially get a leg up on other people, and so other people then start to subsidize your life. And that was something then that I wasn't quite certain, though, still, if the math would work out. So I'm bringing it to the various economists I work with in my computer science, et cetera, life, and they actually were all very excited about this bill. So at that point, I was like, okay, I guess this really makes sense. I then further started to convince myself on the idea that if you took this bill and broke it up into 2 different bills, a severe carbon tax, and then separately a dividend, as some people have been using the term freedom dividend recently, I'd probably be for each of these 2 things separately. And then if you said that this thing here was floating in some way based on, well, I'd probably still be for these things. So I think this is great. But one other thing that I ended up learning is that apparently there is, actually, still why I think this is great, there was another bill that is currently being